Welcome to the Third Realm Integration Podcast, where our unconscious minds meet and the transformation begins. I am your host, Maegan Kenny. Let's get started. What is up? 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 What is up, everybody? You have no idea what I am feeling right now, so I'm going to try to put it into words. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that we actually have people listening to this podcast. So rewind a little bit. When I did the Dictionary podcast many moons ago, I never had it on YouTube. The only way that it was on YouTube was it automatically got pushed out to YouTube from the Podbean platform. So I never manually did anything to it. So it was like back then, YouTube wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. And I'm actually going to be moving the show entirely over to YouTube. So we're not dealing with, nobody listens on some of these podcast apps anyway. And I don't mean just my show. I just mean in general. I feel like so many people are on YouTube just because it's such a convenient, rich area for so much of the metaphysical, spiritual information. So so I don't really know how to use YouTube, right? I don't really know what I'm doing on there. I just upload the video, put a couple tags in, publish it, whatever. So somebody told me recently that they left a comment on one of the episodes. And I'm like, I don't see the comment. Like, where is it? So I go into the dashboard and I'm looking through and I click on the different episodes. And there are these comments that are held for review that I actually have to manually go in and release. And I'm seeing these comments from people. And I'm like, this is a trip. When I tell you guys, I had zero intentions on trying to create any sort of audience at all with this platform, the way that I did with the last show. Because the way that I did it on the last show was so ego-driven. And it was like this weird, podcast space that I was in where I knew all these other podcasters and it was all about downloads and getting sponsors and becoming a name so then you could get all these big guests on the show. And it was cool for a minute. And then it became way too much pressure and way too much work. And I started to lose focus. I started to there was a disconnection that I started to feel from the content itself, where I actually started to hate showing up and recording the podcast. I did not enjoy it anymore. And then I closed up shop and I was like, we need a rebirth here. We need to take a step back. And if I feel pulled to jump back on the mic, I will. But this time it is with zero intention of reaching some sort of mass scale audience. Who cares about several 100,000 downloads? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting a value in a currency. I'm not creating that as the currency. I could care less. And so if I care less, then what is the point of doing the show? Well, maybe it's where I can work out some of my patterning, because I have Saturn in the third house of communication, and then I have a stellium of Chiron, my sun, and Mercury in the ninth house of Gemini, also about communication. So I have some issues with how I communicate. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is, and as a Gemini, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be using the platforms of technology and anywhere else, public speaking, whatever, to really get my voice out there. Wherever it is supposed to land, it will land. Whoever is supposed to resonate with it will. And whoever is supposed to find it also will just find it. So let's move out of ego and let's move more into releasing those attachments and just coming from a pure energetic space. Trusting that if you're coming from an authentic, centered, pure place, that you will draw in the people that you're supposed to draw in. Vibrationally, you will line up. Forget about all the barriers of the physical world. Let's just talk about the energetic realms that we are always participating in when we look at it from a quantum perspective. So that's how I went into the show. So I had zero expectations of actually reaching anybody. I feel very fulfilled in the individual therapeutic space and the clients that I see. So it's not like I need that. It's not even like I need to reach people in my private practice. I'm always coming back to a space of being okay with whoever I help in whatever capacity that shows up in. But I have to say, the fact that I actually had people leaving comments, I'm going to shout you guys out in a second because I literally had zero intentions on jumping on this mic today. I frankly don't even know what I'm going to talk about. And I'm like over here, I'm literally like crying over here as I'm watching these comments. I'm so moved by what you guys are saying and how the content of the show is resonating with you. And I was just like, we're jumping on here. We have to. We have to do this right now. So I was about to go do like 3 other things right now, and I just stopped and I just jumped on here. And I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I'm so touched by the profound comments that have been left that my heart is just like pouring out whatever energy it has, and I just feel like I'm enveloped by it right now. And I just wanted to share that because I think it's so special that you guys took the time to leave a comment. I think it's really incredibly special that you were moved to write anything in the first place, that anything I say when I jump on here connects with you, resonates with you, and is helpful and is sparking some ideas and thoughts enough to actually take your fingers to the keyboard and then respond. And I have a lot of gratitude for you guys for jumping on and participating in this, because this is a living organism here. This is an unfolding journey for me and hopefully for the people that are listening, that creates a little bit of an anchor to hold us as we go along this journey called life. And I am so touched by the fact that people reached out and really decided to share some of their thoughts. And so I want to read a couple. I'm going to show you guys. I mean, the comments are public, so I don't know who you guys are. So I'm just going to read your handle. But Curious Reader 6260 leaves a comment on the victim archetype episode talking about my accent, drawing. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that episode and see what I said. And it says, brings me back to Medford. Medford. You guys that live in the Boston area know that Medford is Medford. But that's not how we say it. We say Medford. And that's somebody from the old school. So who Curious Reader 6260, who are you? Do I know you? Did we cross paths in my old life back in Massachusetts? Because if we did, hello. And if we did not, welcome. It is good to see a familiar accent in this space. I love it. That I got such a kick out of that. Oh my God. All right. Somebody else. Who else? Let's see. Who left a comment on the heroine's journey? At Recorder545. Such a profound comment. I actually read this out loud to myself when I first read it. And I'm just gonna read it because it really hits. I love your wise rant, says Recorder545. I am a wise elder woman who is also tired. Can you be open to the end for everyone? I know that the school is more like a documentary about the separation from creation. I found for myself, after looking under every rock, that this is a heroic journey to experience the depth of emptiness. Emptiness that created this experience of separation. My soul spoke and said, we are at the end of time. There was always a beginning and an end. The Alpha and Omega. Nailed it. Yeah, you did. Recorder 545. The Alpha and the Omega. I had some downloads about the Alpha and the Omega last year. And then predicted, in some way, shape, or form, everything that's playing out in the global landscape right now. It's kind of a trip. I don't think I pulled from anything that other people didn't also know, but it was an insight that kind of became even more clear at that time. And then they go on to say, we did it all and realized nothing fills us up. Remember the plan of creation. The end you feel is bigger than you could ever imagine. The mind is the last thing to go. It is the only thing left. It never stops defining everything. And then goes down and leaves another comment and says, the celestial said to me, there's only one wound, and that's the separation wound from God. Everything else is an umbrella wound under that initial trauma. And you could not be more accurate. That is exactly what I talk about in the Chiron episode. That is it. That is the primary wound. That is the chironic wound right there, separation from source. And everything else that unfolds in the rest of our life connects back to that original trauma. 100%. Are we at the end of time? We are at the end of the time as we know it. I will say that. I don't know if this is the end of the world. My gut tells me it's not. That still does not mean, though, that we're going to move through the next several years without great catastrophe. I think we probably will, but I don't say that to be to instill any fear or anything like that. I mean, I think it just is the way that it is. And I think when we come to a space of recognizing the truth exactly for what it is and not trying to deny it or discard it or reject it or defend against it, it's all relative at that point, because whatever happens, we then become okay with. So however things play out up until 2027, 2028, when things really do start to take shape in the form of matter, in which we are going to turn this corner, it'll be between now and then that we really get the biggest invitation from source to really come into serious alignment. And we will see what happens. I'm usually pretty cynical about the collective because I work in the Jungian space. So I'm working all about the shadow, the individual and the collective shadow. It just is what it is. Nothing we can do about it. This is the state of the collective psyche right now. And so I'm usually looking at it from that lens. So it's like, how are things going to pan out? I don't know. Are people really going to wake up and see through the illusion? There would have to be an incentive to do that. So the payoff for piercing the illusion would have to be bigger than the payoff for staying asleep. Are we there yet? I don't know. So I do think we're turning a corner, and I do think it is the end of something. Just not sure the end of what. Let me put it like that. And then we have some comments on What Is Your Worth episode. And hopefully I'm saying your name right. Freya. I think it's Freya J. Rose. Freya J. Rose. Thank you for your input here in the realm. You're setting a fine example for up-and-coming influencers like myself, so I appreciate you. And then they go on to say, so funny, I was putting my comment, so I wasn't able to hear what you were saying, and I suppose I'm literally commenting on what you're speaking about. Synchronicity at its finest. I love that. I love when that happens. I love when I'm speaking what other people are thinking and vice versa. It is the most amazing thing. That this comment right here reminds me of the times in which I get the biggest confirmation that I'm in the heart-centered space when I'm in session with clients where they're talking and I have words popping up in my head that connect into what they're saying. And they're not words that would probably be super obvious for them to just like then say, and then they say them. Or I'll have a dream the night before. I'll come into session and the client starts talking about content that was in my dream, like rare stuff you can't just like naturally, normally, just spontaneously talk about. And so these comments remind me of that. I love that. And then Nix1434 says, so many gems here. I'm happy to have found you in your work. You speak my language. Nix, I think you were you the one that left the comment on Instagram too about the blog? If I'm not mistaken, you left a comment on the Third Realm Instagram page looking for the blog that I wrote on the psychological rape of the feminine psyche through the use of antidepressants. Which, that's a loaded one. That's a big one. Got to put your armor on before you go in and read that blog, because that one packs a punch, not gonna lie. So, I'm grateful you actually asked about that blog, because that blog is one that I will say I'm probably, like, if I were to list all my blogs and go through them and be like, okay, which one feels the best? Which one are you most content with? That's the one. That's the one. And I remember when I posted that on Facebook, and I usually have I don't have any friends on Facebook. I keep it to like 5. But I put my stuff as public so people can see the posts that I write. And I didn't get any hits on that one, and I knew why too, because that one can sting a little bit. But it's the truth, and I really didn't make that stuff up. It's not like I came up with all of that stuff on my own. I watched a very old video of Carolyn Mace, and she started to allude to this. And then I took it and I made it a little bit more specific to the overprescribing of antidepressants in our culture, specifically to women consumers. And I took it a little bit deeper. And I used the term psychological rape, which is, in my opinion, what is playing out here in the culture. So, props to you for being brave enough to ask for that blog, because that one goes deep. So I'd be curious to know what you thought about that blog, and if you had any reactions to it, because I knew when I wrote it, it was going to be, tough for some people to read. So if it was tough for you to read, I'm with you on that. I understand. Then we have the one that really was the tearjerker, the ultimate tearjerker. And I'm not going to, I know who this person is. I'm not going to disclose their identity. But the closest person to me in my life. And she leaves a comment under the hypnotic state episode. And if anybody wants to know the depth of the type of work that I do and the approach that I take, this is a great comment to get a good sense of how I go about the work and then what benefits people get from it when they are willing to surrender and follow my lead, because I don't lead people in the wrong direction. That is a fact. I will bet my life on that. I'm not a gambling woman, but if I was, I would absolutely bet my life on that. That I am certain that where I lead people to is to a profoundly liberating experience. And I have never steered anybody in the wrong direction. Ever. Never. Ever. Never have I ever. And I say that to people that are close to me when I offer suggestions. I'm like, I've never steered you wrong, though. You might not like what I'm saying. You might not be ready to do what I'm suggesting. Might be a part of you that's resisting it a little bit, but I've never steered you wrong. So just come back to that. And that's the truth. So she writes, hopefully I can read this without getting choked up. So she writes, my guiding light. I knew years ago when Maegan took me back in a meditation session to my younger self. I literally saw myself. I hugged myself and I said to that young, scared version of myself, everything is going to be okay. Every time I tell this story, I cry because of how amazing it was. From that point forward, my life changed. My fibromyalgia disappeared. Many things changed, and I was open to changing my life. Meg directed that change with love, compassion, and logic, and a drive to see me live a fulfilling life. I love this journey called life we are living, and I'm so blessed to be sharing it with Meg, my soul's partner. I love you more than words could ever say. And then she too had a synchronistic experience where she was jamming out to the song. Same way that I was jamming out to the intro song last episode. And so I wanted to just read that one in particular, because I talk about that experience. I actually share that with people. And I can't make sense of why the fibromyalgia disappeared for this person. I'm not even going to try to make sense of it. All I know is that if you are able to tap into your own inner wisdom and you get there through a relaxed state, and you can really come into the space where you fully surrender and you allow someone to lead you to the place that you may have been avoiding to go for many, many, many years, or never even knew that going back to that place would be healing. And then you go there, and you go there speaking from your adult self, your higher self, your wiser version of yourself, your soul. And you go back to those wounded parts, and you tend to the wounds of those wounded parts, and you give those wounded parts what they needed at that time and what they need now. This is where you actually start to change the past and the present moment. You've just done a quantum jump, and you've jumped into the track of the past that's holding on to all of those subconscious fears and limiting beliefs and pain and trauma. And you use the present version of you to go in and you heal that version of you that's living in the past, or you would say living in another ego track. And then your present reality starts to get influenced by that healing process. So it's very powerful to be able to do that inner child healing work. And this wasn't even inner child. This was like a older, wiser adult version of the person going back to like the young adult version of this person, or like the adult, but like just breaking into adulthood and not having no clue as to what life was all about and what was going on. Petrified as to how this was going to unfold and what was going to come next. So it's not even really inner child. It's a version of the child, because it is the wound itself that you're going back to tend to, and the wounds always really go back to the child. So, just as powerful, but different version of inner child healing. So I wanted to just give a shout out to those comments, because I was so pleasantly surprised and touched and felt so, I don't even know. I don't even know the word. I think really what it comes down to is, if I can wrap this thing called life up by the end, once I get there and I'm wrapping things up and I'm reflecting back and saying, like, what did I do while I was here? Did I make a contribution? The only real contribution that I want to make in this lifetime is to have helped drop a little glimmer of light into people's lives that once I leave sparks up into a whole light bulb. And that they are able to then go on after whatever it is that I lead them into without me present. It's not like I want to be there for people's whole journey. I really don't. I don't have any stake in the game other than to inspire you to go off on your own journey and figure it out. Whatever it is, and however the journey unfolds for you, I have no investment in that whatsoever. It could even be to stay in more pain for a while until you figure it out. But the fact that new insights are coming and you have embarked on that self-discovery journey, and I played a role in stimulating that path forward for you, and I helped inspire something in you, or help you believe in yourself, or move through fears and find that courage to take the step forward, even if you don't do it with me. That would be the biggest gift that I could ever ask for on this planet. So that quote from the Tao Te Ching, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear. That needs to go on my headstone, that quote. That sums it up right there. So to know that anything that I say in any kooky idea that I have that I'm getting on this mic just to let come out of my mouth is not just like helping somebody, but stimulating some sort of change, some sort of insight, some sort of profound reflection in somebody, I could not ask for anything more. And then on top of that, to actually have been a part of people's journey long enough to actually see major changes, that's takes it to another level. I would never expect that or strive for that. But when that happens, it's like mission accomplished. I mean, I've already accomplished the mission. I think that's where the state of my life is at this point. I've already done what I've set out to do. So now what? Now where do I focus my energy? Because everything that I would have ever wanted to do in this lifetime, I've now done. And so there's a feeling of being very content. There's a space of contentment that I am in these days. Even when I don't feel great about the work that I'm doing. And I have like a weird feeling about something. And I'm like, I don't think I really want to be doing that. That's uncomfortable. Or you have those times where you're working with people where you're just like, that this person's not going to be making any changes anytime soon because the way in which they are stuck is serving them way too much. So there's no real incentive to change. So can you be okay with that? And that is a challenge right there for any therapist. Never mind anybody who does the type of work that I do. Being okay with people staying in the victim, staying in rage, staying in anger, and being so mad about their current situation and being really rageful and full of anger and full on rage. And by the way, not rage that you can see, rage that you can feel. I'm talking about when you're sitting with somebody and you can feel the rage seething out of them and they've barely said a word. That's the kind of explosive rage that I'm talking about. And when you're in session with somebody and you're feeling that, and you're like, wow, this person is so mad. This person is so angry that they didn't get to throw their life away the same way that everyone else around them did, and they got to hold it together. And they're the one in the family that's supposed to be like the one that has it together, when all they want is to explode the way that everybody else around them has. And not have to show up for life and be responsible for anything. They're so angry that they didn't get the chance to do that. Think about people, family members that have loved ones that have struggled with addiction. That's not often talked about. The resentment that the loved ones have, that their family member got to go and numb out for many years and be irresponsible and not have to show up to the plate and live in a perpetual dependent state and not have to take the reins over their own life. That loved one has been sober the whole time, you guys. You got to remember that too. The loved ones of the active addicts are dealing with the same level of pain, but they don't get the chance to numb out and allow their life to blow up into catastrophe the same way that the active addict gets the opportunity and gets away with doing. And I'm just giving it to you straight because I walked the path. I've walked the path on both sides. So I'm talking about this from the inside out. When we are active addicts, we have an exit strategy. We get to numb out. And our loved ones don't have they're not afforded that same opportunity. They have to go through it sober. And that's pretty fucking tough. And you can see why people would be enraged over that. You get to go over there and just numb out while I have to actually deal with your catastrophe sober-minded. You you know what I mean? How dare you? You know how much I would like to just be doing what you're doing? But I can't because I have this and I have that. And who's going to keep it together if you're going to blow shit up? Who's going to keep it together over here? Me. You know how much resentment builds over that? You know how much healing has to be done around that? Years after even the active addict gets clean and sober, if they get there. You know how much forgiveness therapy that codependent loved one has to do to be able to let go of all that so they're not living with that poison for the rest of their life, hoping that one day it'll be their turn? Yeah, that's a rough one. So you can see why somebody carries so much rage that's in that situation. So when you're working with somebody that's caught in that, they're hanging on to that rage, man. They're waiting. They're waiting for it to explode. And in the meantime, they are pissed off, like on a really extreme level. And you know what can you really do? What can you really do for somebody that's caught in that situation? They like that rage, man. That's a drug. That's their drug. And until they get sober off of that seething rage that's moving through every cell in their body, there's nothing you can do. And chances are the person's not even conscious that that's actually what's going on. So, even having to be okay as a therapist, sitting with somebody that you know is not making progress in the standard way in which how we measure that in therapy. They're not making changes in their life. They're staying in toxic situations. They're not following through with any of the ideas that they have. They're still self-sabotaging. They're still in a state of juvenile defiance. They don't take suggestions. They don't do the work outside of session. So what do? You have to recognize that any attachments that you have to that person getting better is about you as the therapist. It has nothing to do with them. Because their soul's on a journey here too to learn something. And you can't interfere with that. Why would you interfere with somebody's soul's journey and act like you know better than their soul? How dare you do that? You have no business doing that. You have no business interfering. Somebody might need to be here on this planet to learn the power of suffering through being powerless as a victim. And we don't have that right to take that away from somebody because that could be their awakening moment. It just hasn't built yet enough to a climax where the break happens. But it's on its way. It is on its way. It's likely to happen at some point. So why would you take that away from somebody? You can't do that. It's not right. You're not respecting their journey. So you got to respect people's journeys. So you got to come out of a place of love and compassion and respect for the things on this planet that you don't know and understand, and trust that there is an order to the chaos. So even that, to me, makes me feel content to know that I participated in somebody's journey, even to a minute degree, that in the big scheme of things ends up being a big deal, even though it doesn't feel like you did anything to help that person in the meantime. You have no idea how you may have helped that person. They might quit therapy. They'll leave. They might, who knows, they might even be mad that they didn't change, that they blame you, whatever. It doesn't matter. You've at least planted some seed that might sprout later on, years down the road. They might come back and think about something that you said. One thing that you said out of the hours that you've said shit. One thing. And to me, that's good enough. So being able to offer my insights as I'm literally just working through them on this mic, half the time I don't even know what the hell I'm going to say or even if it makes any sense. Sometimes I listen back to these episodes and I'm like, you know what? I do think at this stage of the game, the amount of drugs that I did in my younger days has a little bit of an effect on the mind. I do. I say the wrong word sometimes. I think I'm saying one word, I'm saying a different word, which is weird because I used to be so critical of people that did that. And I'd be like, you're not saying that right. That's not the right word. And here I am doing it. How's your slice of humble pie? You know what I mean? Let's knock you down a few pegs. So I stumble over my words. Sometimes I don't even know the proper English, I guess, grammar, and I write at the PhD level, APA format. You know what I mean? And sometimes I can't even freaking speak. So it's everybody's just out here just trying to do the best they can do. Everybody's human. Get over it, I got to say that to myself now. Who cares? As long as you're getting the message, who cares how it's delivered? You got it, didn't you? All right, then. So it's just about getting on here and just whatever comes out, say it. Let it go and let it flow. And the fact that you guys have been so receptive to that is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. So I just can't even, I'm in shock, really, I am. Especially seeing them all in one day. That's the other thing, too. So I went on in the comments, and it says, if I don't check them within 60 days, they're deleted, they disappear. And some of these episodes were 2 months ago, just under the 2-month mark. So if anybody's commented on any of these videos from, the basically probably like the prostitute archetype and on. I never saw them, and I totally did not do that intentionally. So if you did leave a comment, hey, jump on and leave it again if you want. I'll shout you out on the show. So my apologies if I did miss anybody's comments, because there's a good possibility I could have. But now I'm figuring out the YouTube space a little bit more, so hopefully I'm not going to miss any going forward. In any case, I've already talked for 35 minutes. I was thinking about saying something else, but maybe I'll leave that for another episode. What I wanted to talk about was The Inner Roommate, Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul. I'm telling you guys, I read a lot of books, I recommend a lot of books to my clients. I'm going to leave you with 2 books right here that are total game changers. It's Carolyn Mace's Sacred Contracts book. That's going to bring you into the space of experiencing your world from an archetypal lens and understanding the soul's journey and the way in which you co-create your reality unbeknownst to you, so you can become more clear about the fact that you did participate on a soul level to come here right now to live this lifetime exactly the way that it's played out with all the players of this play that you have constructed. And that right there is a game changer. And then you have Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, which is so much about how to surrender. I think he has another book too called The Power of Surrender or something like that, which is I haven't read it yet. I have it in my Audible library. But willing to bet, also a game changer. But The Untethered Soul is all about untethering yourself from the hazards of the mind. And coming into the observer archetype, your inner observer, which, by the way, is what you access when you go into the heart. It is the observer. That is what the heart is all about. And when you step into the observer, that's when everything transforms. So I think I'm going to do a whole episode on what he talks about, but I'm going to use my language, my archetypal language, because he says what everybody else says, but the way he breaks it down with such simplicity. Even I, after years of studying this stuff, part of me was like, nah, I'm not going to, everyone says it's a good book and all that, but I already know that shit, really. Like, he's probably just going to say what I've already heard a million times. And he did, but he said it in a different way, and it landed so well that I'm on here talking to you guys about it. Highly recommend it. Highly, highly, highly. Listen to it while you're going to sleep. You want to talk about reprogramming your subconscious mind? Yeah, that one will do it. So I might jump on and do another episode on that. But anyway, just wanted to jump on and give it. I don't even know what I'm going to title this episode. I don't even know what I just said. What did I even just talk about? I have no idea. My teacher used to say when she would forget things that it was actually a good sign. Seriously, because it meant that she had integrated the information and she wasn't attached to it anymore. There was no attachment there, so therefore it didn't hold this emotional charge that then would create the memory. So maybe it's a good thing that I don't have a clue as to what I just talked about other than reading these awesome comments. But maybe we'll call this one listener appreciation. Hey, why not? I used to do that on the last pod. Maybe we'll bring that back. So I'm going to leave it there, you guys. I love you all. And I am really grateful. I'm really grateful that we are building a little bit of a soul collective over here. It's pretty awesome. I'm here for it. I'm really here for it, you guys. So I'm going to leave it there. And as always, may the light always lead your way. Be well, everybody.
The Third Realm Integration Podcast and related content is intended to provide information and/or entertainment only and is not a substitute for mental health or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Do not delay mental health or medical consultation or substitute a mental health or medical professional's opinion because of what you heard on this show. Seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health or medical condition. The host of this podcast does not provide emergency support for mental health or medical issues. For questions or concerns, visit your local emergency room or contact your doctor.
Nothing today for you people. I'll leave it quoteless. Have a blessed weekend, everybody.